Hello, this is an assessment in transit of a Bluthner style 5 grand piano. It's 175 centimetres long, 5 foot 9 inches long, made in 1914, and this is typical casework style for that age. It's what we call gate leg or sometimes Sheraton style, and it was popular. Bechstein was most common using that. Bluthner not quite so common. The music sounds exactly what you expect that age of Bluthner grand to be, and the piano has been repolished and been restored. So let's just have a look and see what sort of work might need to be done to improve it. I notice here this is ivory keys and it's 88 notes. That one of the ivories is a slightly different colour from the rest, so we could obviously try and perfect the ivories. This ridge here, you could stick that down so it's a bit, you can't feel the ridge on it, and same there. So there's a few there that we could perhaps improve a little bit, and the casework in general has been repolished, and it's in good condition generally. So if we go around the whole of the case, we can see that there's really polish is good right the way around. There's just a few very small defects, but nothing serious really. And there's a darkish finish that they put on it and a shiny finish, and it looks very pleasant indeed. Let's just look around all the sides too, and the top, to see if there's any fading on the top, because very often when the lid's been held back there's fading. So I think that's actually just dust there. So let's just lift it back, and no fading at all, so it's been kept closed, I would imagine. So you don't get a line appearing here, as we've mentioned many times, but you get a line appearing here if it's been kept back. So if you have a grand piano, it's good to keep it closed. Try and avoid strong light really, because that tends to fade the piano. And beautiful rosewood. So this is high quality pianos you'd expect Bluthner to be. I think it's been kept open a lot because it's slightly darker behind the fall, but good condition generally. Now, one important aspect I want to mention is moth damage, and you can see if you look carefully, if you've got a piano and you look at the felt behind the keys, if that looks not, it looks like it might have been eaten slightly, then that's a sign of moth damage. So that's one of the ways we can tell. You can't always see it, but if you take this bit off here, what we call the fall, underneath you can see very clearly. So if you look along the felt here, you can see where bits of it have been eaten. So that's little bits right the way along. It's not as extensive as you sometimes find. It's very common for moth larvae to damage the pianos, so it's important to just check that if you have a piano, because it can be sitting there and you're not realising it. I noticed it first when I saw the felt here behind the tuning pins. You see that sort of flakiness, and now that's caused by moths. So it's like you don't see holes or anything there, but just that flakiness. And then as we look along here, we can see a reasonable amount of moth damage. It's not nearly as bad as it's not damaging the sound of the piano. It's just eating the felt there. So there's some holes. Unfortunately, not done a huge amount more damage. There's some flakiness there again, but now I've already treated this. Obviously, that's so important that we get that done immediately. So there's several products that will kill moth. You need to pretty extensive, but don't try not to get on the strings, because it can damage strings if you get liquid on them. Now, I've checked the tuning pins, which are tight. That's obviously extremely important, and they are tight. There hasn't got a new rest plank under here, but it's been restrung, and it's been well restrung. These are not original Bluthner strings. We've shown before what original Bluthner strings look like, but they're good quality ones. Let's have a listen to the tone of the piano. Beautifully plummy Bluthner sound. And then in the tenor and bass. And a beautiful lush bass sound. Now, looking at the felts under the keys, you can see the moths have attacked these. Not as much as sometimes they completely destroy them. They haven't got that far, fortunately. But if you can see, if you can focus properly, to get some little round, they're basically moth droppings, and the droppings are green, moth larva droppings I mean. So looking along there, you can see right the way along they've had a go at them. Now, having taken the action out, on the left side of the piano's been put on its side, obviously, for removal, and you can see where all these droppings have collected, which were then pushed to the left-hand side. So you can see here, there we are, and you can see very clearly, and they've eaten some of the felt here as well. Fortunately, nothing has been damaged in such a way as to really affect the piano. Very often, pianos are almost destroyed by moth. Well, the felts are destroyed and you have to replace them all. Now look at the action. This is typical Bluthner patent action we've shown many times, and looking at, as on the theme of moths again, they've had a little nibble at the hammers but haven't damaged them in the sense of they played just as well as they did. It's not damaged the top, but you can see they've had a nibble here. I don't know if you can pick it up very well, but you can see those whiter patches. So that's where they've nibbled them. Sometimes that can be extensive, but it doesn't normally damage the hammers that much. It's more the felts, like this felt here. There's just a slight sign that they've had a go at that. So fortunately, no real damage, but there was some live moth in the piano. We immediately treated it. Now these are replacement hammers, presumably done when it was repolished as well, and I don't think normally the underfelts is green on Bluthner grands, so these are well chosen hammers. They're not too heavy. Very often when hammers are put on, the ones that are put on are far too heavy, but these aren't. These are very good quality. Now there's a clue as to when this restoration was done, because this decal on the piano, this badge here, that number at the bottom is 1914, that serial number. But the dates here, they date after that. So I've got a torch here which I'm hoping will be enough for you to see. The latest dates on there, 1922, 1927 and 1929. And that's a very common decal that they put on when they restore pianos. Bluthner put that one on, but you can also get them in the trade, so it doesn't necessarily tell us who did that. But 1929 is the last date on there, so we can perhaps think the restoration might be done in the early 1930s. There are some defects on the case. When they polished it, they seem to have filled this in here, so it's a slightly different colour, and on the legs I noticed there's a little bit of scratching. So our polisher could certainly make this good, as we would our stock pianos that we don't repolish. We try and make them look as good as we can. Here behind the pedals there's also, I think it's mostly dirty, but certainly we can liven up the case in general. So the piano seems to have been restored well. The main issue was moth, which we've treated already because I don't want that to linger, obviously. The key weighting is a bit varied. For some reason, middle C is 46, and then you've got 56 on these F sharps, and I think that's 58 there. So it's a bit varied generally, so we'd normally even that up. If it was our piano that we were selling, then we certainly would like to even that up. It should be lighter in the top end, up 54. Should be lighter than the centre, if anything. So 52, between 48, say 47 and 56 would be acceptable, depending on whether you want light or heavy action. And that's the upweight under there, 37. That's a bit on the high side. That tends to be the case with Bluthner patent actions, so it's quite normal, and it's a beautiful feel to the action anyway. So it just needs fine regulation, pitch raising and voicing. So that's a Bluthner style 5 grand piano with gate legs, which is not quite so common in Bluthners, and it's a fine instrument. It's been well restored in, I would say, in the 1930s, or certainly after 1929, because we saw that date on the piano, and the piano was actually made in 1914 or round about then. And just Bluthners are so consistent, really. That age of Bluthner, you never seem to get a bad piano. The main issue with it was moth damage, but fortunately it hasn't damaged the actual playability of the piano. It's just cosmetic. But there was genuinely live moth there, so I had to treat it straight away. Now moths can damage underneath the keys. It's worth perhaps noting at this point, they can don't damage them, even if it's a modern piano. We had one recently that's about the year 2000, and it had eaten all the felt under the keys. And there was plenty of live moth in that piano. So don't think you've got a young piano. It doesn't happen. Obviously, it's more common in older pianos. They've been around for longer. So do check behind the keys, the felt here, see if there's any holes in it. Maybe take this off if you think there is, and have a look underneath, and have a look inside the piano too, see if there's any moth damage, because it's, as I say, it's so common, and obviously you want to avoid that at all costs. Just a beautiful tone, and this has a good touch, and is refining. But it's generally very, very good. If you've got a piano that needs restoring, or you think you'd like a quote on it, then please do write to us, info@robertspianos.com. Thank you very much for listening.